Okay, let's start our PvP roam here. Scan down this system. A lot of players in here. Let's see what we get. And a Rorqual. Okay, a little bit too tough to take out a Rorqual. I think it has too much HP. Let's move on over here, see what we got. And a Hell. Okay, hell no. Let's try the next system here. Looking for battleships. Any kind of battleships that we can take out. Okay, Moros Bodyguard. That's not going to work. Let's keep going here. Okay, Nidhogger. Nope, that's a little too rough for us. Science-y. Still a little bit too big. Science. Okay, where's all the battles? Nidhogger. Oh my gosh. Okay, Visago. No. Okay. We got battleships. There's battleships here. We got an APOC and a Battleborn. Let's go ahead and warp in. We might be able to take on one at a time. Maybe we can get one down really quick and then warp off. It's possible that they're kind of fighting at a distance from each other, so that they might not be able to hit us with our quick orbit. So we finally found a battleship here, and we're going to warp in, and we're going to take this fight. I know it's 2 versus 1, but that's okay. Wait. No, how is this possible? Hello pilots, and welcome back to another Eve Echoes video. I know it's been a while since my last one, but I've managed to scrape together enough content to actually put something together to showcase. So some of these are going to be some clips that I've managed to come up with over the last 4 or 5 weeks since my last video came out. Our first target is going to be over in Wolf territory here. We're going to be warping in on a Cyclone. This is just a regular medium missile battlecruiser. Now I have fought some Cyclones before that are actually surprisingly tanky and surprisingly well fit. So I'm actually kind of surprised, or I should say expecting somewhat of a trap here. A little bit weary as I warp in, as I don't have any type of heals or anything, just a large extender in the low slots, and I'm mostly built for offense. So hopefully I don't get trapped or dropped on this encounter. Now we landed a little bit outside of our bubble range, but that's okay. It's not too far off for our fast afterburner to catch up. Once we're in 29 kilometer range, we can go ahead and start our orbit around our target, and we've got him trapped. Now you might notice as I orbit around this target that I'm going to be doing a little bit less DPS than I normally do. That's not because I fit differently or anything, it's because this is a medium-sized ship, a battlecruiser-sized ship, instead of a large battleship. So I'm not going to be able to apply as well with the speed that I'm orbiting. That being said, this is going to be much less of a PvP encounter and a lot more of a curb stomp, because these medium weapon ships just do not match up well against faction cruisers. For the most part. There are exceptions. There are some people who have really built out their battlecruiser to be able to take on even battleships or even carriers, but for the most part, these battlecruisers just cannot match up to faction cruisers at this point in the game. Alright, so as I said, pretty easy kill there. Turns out not to be a trap, so we'll go ahead and scoop up whatever loot he had, pop the pod, and we'll check out that kill mail and see what we ended up with. Yeah, really basic loot here. Looks like somebody just venturing out into nullsec for the first time. So again, not a great target, but something to start our video off on the right foot. We'll pick up this NPC wreck as well, just for the extra loot. Why not? It's right there. And as we warp to a planet, we'll open up that kill mail and see what we got. Go into the combat log. Okay, 180 million, not too bad. I was using medium missiles in the high slots, but just seemed to be asleep at the wheel for that one. Alright, moving on to Tenerifis on our next clip here. I did have to mute the audio for the in-game sound effects for this one, just because there was some kind of static or something going on in the background, but for the most part, you're going to see here, we're going to warp in on a Megathron Navy issue, and I'm also going to scan down another area in the system, just because there's so many signatures. And you see we also have an APOC Navy issue ratting out here as well, so something to be aware of. It's good to always do that double scan when you're on your way to your target to kind of see if there's anything else in the system. Might be a super carrier that you have to be prepared to drop on you as well. Alright, but landing here, we can see he is ratting, and looks like pretty up close to the rats within 10 kilometers. We're going to have to burn over to him, but we are pretty quick with that medium afterburner, especially with the Fiend's extra speed boost skills. So we're going to get within 29 kilometers real fast, and we aren't doing a whole lot of damage to him, so most likely this is going to be a shield tank Megathron Navy issue, which is going to give us a lot of problems. Not necessarily because it's shield tank in general, because actually our EM lasers would apply better damage to a shield tank ship, but because these Navy issues already have such high resists, and Megathron Navy are up close fighters, so they're going to be fit more tanky to be fighting multiple NPCs at a time. So we're not going to run into our glass cannon APOC strikers like we usually do with this ship. No, Megathron Navies, you got to watch out for those. They can be very surprisingly tanky. Now, as our focus crystal charges up here, we're about halfway through our charge. I've got both heat sinks activated, and we'll open up our combat here and check out our total DPS. Yeah, 3,200 so far. It will get a little bit higher than that, but then our heat sinks are going to start to turn off, so it's actually going to even out to about 3,000. And oh, we can see that APOC Navy that we scanned down earlier has come to try and help this Megathron Navy. He's definitely going down over time. Not sure if he has a rep or not. Oh, we got another ship coming in here. Tempest fleet issue. Okay, we got 3 battleships. Not too bad, though. They're going to have a hard time tracking us. Okay, no, that's another one. What is that? Raven Navy issue. Wow, one of each. So the collection has descended upon us here. I think it's time to turn off our bubble and warp away. Now, if I had like a large booster with a NOS, I would probably try and stay to see if I could take this Megathron Navy down. And honestly, I might even have a good matchup against the other battleships too, just because they have such a hard time dealing damage to the Fiend as it orbits, but this is just too risky without my repping bonuses. One other thing I want to mention though is that whether that was a multi-boxer or 4 separate players, the strategy still remains really strong, where you fit your routing ship more tanky so that your friends or allies have time to get to you to back you up. So kudos to them for pulling that off. Very well done defensively. Moving on to the next system in Tenerifis here, we are scanning down our target. This is 1 noise signal, so we know it's going to be a big enough ship for us to warp in on. Covetor 2, okay, not too bad. Not ideal, obviously, but they do sometimes carry those expensive strip miners in the high slots. And I've already started my warp, but let's go ahead and check this other signal that's right below it. Apocalypse Navy issue. That actually would have been a lot better target to warp in on, and I'm actually surprised that it wasn't higher on the list than the Covetor 2. Usually the higher ship signature radius is going to be the highest on the list, but for some reason that's not the case here, or maybe I have it wrong. You can let me know in the comments. Either way, we're going to land right on top of this Covetor, pop our bubble, and he's not going anywhere. We can put our web on him just so he doesn't move, and we're going to keep a straight approach so we can apply max DPS. No need to orbit a target this small. We can definitely take it out with our 3,000 DPS. We'll throw on double heat sinks just to kill it as fast as possible, because, you know, while that bubble is up, we can't warp away as well. So we don't want anybody setting up a trap. Let's try and take it out. And right before our bubble cycle finishes, so very nice, we can turn off that bubble and be ready to warp away in case anything comes in here. So let's go ahead and pick up the loot, see if he had anything expensive. Nah, looks like just some MK9 and a cloaking device, just some MK9 loot. So nothing great for the Covetor 2. So again, those things don't really pay off, but when you're out there looking for kills, you just take the first scan you find and you hope that it's something worthwhile. Alright, coming through the next system here, we are over in AOA space, and for some reason coming through this gate there's an orca about 16,000 kilometers off. That doesn't sit right with me. Well, it's on the grid anyway, so we're not going to be able to scan him down or warp to him, and we can't slow boat it out 16,000 kilometers. Maybe there's a POS or something over in that area, not quite sure. We'll go ahead and head over to the sun and scan the system down and see if we can find something else. More than likely that's some kind of trap or eyes for the system. Okay, we got 1 signal here. Let's go ahead and finish this puzzle real quick. Whoa!
Oh, no, I ain't seen nothing. I ain't seen nothing. Matter of fact, I'm blind in my left eye and 43% blind in my right eye. I don't see much of nothing. Matter of fact, I can't even see you, sir.
Yeah, we're just gonna back out of that screen there, check the next scan result. No way in hell am I gonna warp in on that many Rorquals. I couldn't even take out 1 in my Fiend if I wanted to. Looks like we had another ship warp away from that signal there, so we'll check 1 more just in case. I know we're kind of killing a little bit too much time. Okay, so that one's empty. Let's go ahead and back out of here and head on over to the next gate. We do have that orca on the overview, but that's got to be some kind of trap of some kind, so we'll go ahead and just warp to the next gate and we'll check another system. You can see the Rorquals passing by here, so Citadel must be pretty close from the gate where we are. Yep, there's another one. All right. And there they all go. So they're all warping back anyway. Wouldn't have had a chance to grab them even if I wanted to. Just way too much. I mean, if you stick a capital newt on each one of those, I'm just dead in the water anyway. So no point in even warping in on those in that system. And okay, see, now they have the super carrier right here on this gate. So no chance in hell I'm going to engage anything in this system. Very well defended, and I'm off. Now the next thing I wanted to try, and you may have noticed that I've actually gone ahead and joined the faction war games and disguised myself. I could go over a whole thing on how to disguise yourself, but Overall, my opinions of it are not very high. I'll kind of save that to the end of the video, but my theory on this was disguise myself and get into an Atron 2 Interceptor. Now you might be thinking, Gromeyer, why are you in an Interceptor? You know that those don't put out enough DPS to kill anything. Well, yes, you're right. It's only about 800 DPS fully hot on this build. I don't have it super built. In fact, it's actually very cheaply built. It's only about 100 insurance points if I lose it. But the bright side is, A, they're going to think that I'm just a travel scepter, so perhaps they won't call me out. Perhaps they'll just let their guard down and think that I'm not going to warp in and tackle any Covetor 2s or Orcas or any AFK APOC strikers out there ratting, and I can kind of sneak up on somebody in deep system territory. And my main goal with using this ship here is to avoid bubbles. So many times I get caught in a system where I have to log out lamely or filament out lamely, when honestly I don't want my PvP session to end. I just want to keep going. So being able to avoid those bubbles completely and pretty much move around freely throughout the systems as you want is a huge advantage for using the Interceptor. And actually I would love to get into some Interceptor fleets. I think we need to bring that back as a way for hunting and taking things down, just because there's so many Fiend bubbles on gates with super carriers and Visagos that are out there picking things off as they come through. Although I will admit that the Interceptor fleets have kind of died off over the last year or two, partially because the population of the game has gone down, so you don't have the number of players to fly in those kind of fleets that you need to in order to put out as much DPS as you need to take down these ships. But if you ever find yourself wanting a little bit of a fun time and you just want to go out there on an adventure, I highly recommend the Interceptor. You can see here, I warped out on a system and they don't know what kind of ship I'm in. They don't know my name because I'm disguised, so I think typically if you see Gromeyer in your system, you're like, he's in a Fiend, right? But I'm in an Interceptor, so I can just freely fly through and pick up whatever I can find. And in this one, he went ahead and was doing some special anomalies here. So I went through gate to gate, he warped back to Citadel, and I was able to pick up some blue loot. This is just free, fun PvP. If you ever find yourself kind of discouraged with how much you're losing IP-wise, or trying to compete with the biggest ships in the game. You know, Visagos are everywhere, and they'll warp around in 2 seconds to take you out. So if you ever want just a kind of free, fun time, I highly suggest getting into an Interceptor. The Atron 2 is actually a really good one as well, because with the high power coil implant, it puts out a surprisingly good amount of DPS, and the HPC implant level 30 can lower their resistance as well. So you are able to take out some of those bigger ships that are just AFK ratting. And you can see that a lot more nowadays in nullsec. People are just leaving their AI on and either AFK ratting or AFK mining in their deep pocket systems, and you can get there through the bubbles with the Interceptor. Now, all that being said, as much as it sounds great on paper, I tried this out for about 2 weeks off and on, and I didn't catch a damn thing. So maybe there's less people running AI in nullsec than there used to be. Maybe there's no need for it anymore, hint hint, but for the most part, I wasn't able to catch anybody. It didn't matter if I was disguised. It didn't matter if I was in an Interceptor. If they see red or gray on the local list, everybody's warping back, and they're warping back faster than a frigate can get to them. So besides picking off a couple of Venture pod cameras, I did get one engagement on a gate and take advantage of the Atron's Interceptor's fast lock-on time. I was sitting here at this gate waiting for something to come through. I had seen the blue streak, so I knew it was coming through this gate. There's the blue streak. And we're going to go ahead and wait and be hopefully in range of this ship when it comes through. The Scrambler only has about 15 to 16 kilometers range, but we are able to fast lock onto this target and get him scrambled before he auto warps to the next gate. So this is a Tyra that's hauling something in its inventory, and we were able to lock it down really quick. Sometimes, you know, when they come through the gate, they're like 27 kilometers away because they're on the opposite side, but I kind of lucked out here because he came right through where I was sitting, and we got him real quick. Okay, not too bad for a little Interceptor. Let's go ahead and take care of that pod. Go ahead and switch over to our loot on the overview and pick up and see what he dropped. Oh, very nice. Looks like he was hauling some PI through nullsec, and we managed to capture him. We did get some other items like those general data units. Not a lot though, not a huge value, but definitely worth the time in our little Interceptor to pick up. And because I'm not going to be able to carry all of this, I am going to have to bookmark the location of this loot and come back and forth and drop it off at an NPC station. However, the great news is we're in an interceptor, so nothing can stop us from going back and forth. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. Most nothing can stop us from going back and forth and dropping this loot off that we've got. And as we warp to the next gate to continue our journey, let's go ahead and open up that kill mail and see what the value of this looting ship or this hauling ship was. Let's go into the combat tab. And not too bad, the Tyra for 787 million, pretty good for a little interceptor. Definitely is positive on that one. Okay, we will send that to the Alliance. See if we can get a little bit of a cheers here for this little Atron kill. Let's take our screenshot from Moby and we'll scroll down here and you can see definitely was hauling out as much PI as he could fit in that thing, and it never made it. Okay, let's move on. The next thing I want to highlight is something that I've been working on for quite some time. This is kind of a pet project of mine. I was trying to see if I could get my Fiend to go 10,000 meters per second. Now, you'll see in this clip here, I've activated the inertia and I've got the large afterburner on, and I am going as fast as I can, but it takes so long to get up to that 10K speed. You'll see here, I think it'll take about 35 to 40 seconds total, but we are able to finally reach that number. I had to buy 3 auxiliary 4 thrusters for the engineering slide. I had to upgrade my gold nanocore to get as much large afterburner and cruiser speed as I could out of this, but I managed to achieve it. You'll see here in this second clip, I managed to get an inertia GU, I think it's level 9, to increase the effect while it's passively not going, and cuts it down a little bit, I think by about 5 seconds overall, but still definitely nowhere near usable. So we're gonna have to fit a second inertia stabilizer on there and see if we can get this thing to be actually usable in combat in some fashion. So let's try that. Let's go double inertia stabilizers in the low slots, see if this improves it at all. Ooh, much faster, much better. I think that was about 8 seconds total to get to that 10,000 speed. Let's open up our combat fitting here and you can see, click on speed here, 10,049 ms in our Fiend. Now I was able to get it up another 300 meters per second with a B-type large afterburner, but I'm not gonna let that drop in any kind of combat scenario. That was like 800 million-ish, that's not worth it. The fact is that we got over our 10,000 mark, something I've been working at for a long time, and we've managed to upgrade it enough. So we'll go ahead and dock up. You can see just how slow it is without those inertias to actually turn to go the opposite direction and warp back. I think it takes about 15 seconds to warp with that afterburner active, so kind of not ideal for that scenario, but let's go ahead and dock up and I can show you the full build of what I have working with and how I got to 10,000. Okay, let's pull it up here, and the first thing I'll go over is the gold nanocore. I have the Dragon Chant AI core, and you can see here I've unlocked 2 additional slots, one for cruiser speed and one for large afterburner speed. And these things ain't even maxed out. I mean, you can get it up another 10% on each of them at least if you get it to rank 10. It'll take a ton of resources, but the fact that the potential is there for me to possibly reach 11,000, that's quite tempting, I gotta say. The basic attributes for the Dragon Chant core also comes with some bonus abilities too. We've got inertia, we've got 2 more slots for afterburner output speed. I like that because it's both for medium afterburner and large afterburner, so it can work for both depending on how you want to fit it. It benefits both. And all of that is just in the nanocore. Let's go ahead and look at the rigs now. I do want to show you I have 3 auxiliary thruster 4 rigs. These things are expensive. The one upside is that they don't drop when you die, so once you buy them, it is going to cost you some insurance points to replace them, but you won't lose them, you won't drop them. Let's back out here and I want to show you my implant. Just real quick, switch over to the Focus Crystal implant. This was active earlier, but I didn't record that part. Anyway, you can see here I have a afterburner output boost GU at level 10. That's another 30% velocity bonus for our afterburner. I've actually had that for a long time. Afterburner output, very beneficial for the Fiend. And you can see I went with both of the GUs for the inertia stabilizer as well. I wanted it to be as fast turning as possible because I knew trying to reach that 10,000 speed and turn is going to be near impossible unless I put some afterburner GUs in there. The level 10 is just a little too expensive for me though. I have a 9 and an 8. And then in the low slots, you can see I just have a regular C-type large afterburner. Again, I mentioned earlier, if I put a B-type large afterburner, I can get another 300 ms, but it's not worth it for the potential to lose that mod when I die, because, you know, from my videos, I kind of die a lot. Speaking of dying, I am out in Decline in SHH space looking for a fight, and I've kind of been warping around here for a long time. I do see a Fiend on a gate, but I'm not going to want to engage this Fiend because it's probably going to be too defensive for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just burst off into the distance. You can see me activate both inertias and my afterburner, and we're going to get out of that bubble so freaking fast. No chance any of these ships are going to be able to catch us. I don't know if that slasher is going to be able to go 10,000, but gosh darn does it feel good to just blast away from them and get out of range and warp away. So safe. Now, the weaknesses of this build are I don't have a lot of defense fit, and I don't have a lot of offense fit, and I can't turn very well, so I'm not going to be orbiting. But the one thing that I can do is try to race some of these tackle interceptors and see if we can take them out if they separate themselves away from their partners enough. I don't think I'm going to get that opportunity with this carrier trying to hit us from this distance, so I'll go ahead and warp to the next gate and see if we can get that small ship to chase us into a position where he's vulnerable and we can take him out in 1 or 2 shots. Okay, next system over here. Let's see if we can get that slasher to chase us. Notice I don't have my local list open because it doesn't matter what names are there. They're all going to appear red, and it'll say unknown capsuleer while I'm disguised. So all I'm looking at is in the bottom left-hand corner to see the number of people in the system. And again, my goal here is to try and bait a tackle scepter into trying to tackle us and not realizing that we have the speed and inertia to turn it right back on them, scramble and double web and 2-shot. That's the goal. So we'll see if we can get this slasher baited from this gate here. We do see a blue streak, so we know something's coming through. Hopefully not the Fiend. And we're going to start to make our way off the gate pretty soon here, as soon as we see what ship that is. We want to try and bait him into engagement. Once he's got us locked on and trying to tackle us, then we know that he can't warp through the gate the other way. The other thing I'm doing is that even though I'm moving off the gate with my large afterburner, I'm not using my inertias yet. Those are going to be used primarily to turn on this scepter, there he is, and see if we can catch him before he can react. Scepters have a really naturally high inertia, so it's going to be very tough, and I know that slashers are the most common tackle interceptor in the game. So we'll kind of pay attention here. We're probably a little bit too far off, and he's just going to sit on the gate there. So we'll go ahead and warp back, get a little bit closer, and see if we can bait him off with a slower speed. You'll notice I turned my speed down there to about 46% because we want him to feel like he can catch us. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to try and chase from this distance. He's probably waiting to see which gate we warp to, or he's waiting for his friends to come through. So I'm going to go ahead and reapproach that gate that he's on and warp to it at about 100 kilometers and see if we can bait him off at that point. Hopefully he's within range, and either we can tackle him real quick or we can get him close enough to where he feels like he can chase us. Okay, warping in here. We'll turn off that afterburner just for a faster warp, but it looks like we were already aligned. And we'll get into about 100 kilometers away from that gate. Still looks like he's about 100 kilometers away from us, so he's definitely sitting right on top of it. So we're going to move away from the gate, but we're not going to turn our afterburner on. We want to slow crawl and try to get into this guy's head. Make him think he has a chance to tackle us. And you know what? Sometimes this will work. Sometimes people won't fall for it, but that's okay. This is all theory crafting, and this is my first try out here to see if it works. So let's give it a shot here. Slowly, we're going to try and bait him, see if he moves. All right, there he goes. He's making his move here. Good job on this player because he's coming at an angle. He's not coming straight onto us, but he is closing the distance. So we're going to go ahead and lock him up, hit both inertias, turn on our afterburner, and see if we can get within range to just tap him one time with that scrambler. There's one shot off. Scramble, scramble, scramble. Get him. Got him. Kind of a risky maneuver there because with our inertia on cooldown for an even longer time because of that GU, we could have been put in a position where we weren't able to kill him and he had us tackled at an orbit range that we weren't able to hit. But the good thing is that we know that over time, we probably outspeed this ship and we can always pop that dragon chant if something comes through to try and tackle us. You'll notice also that I bookmarked the loop because I was probably drifting off a little bit too far with that large afterburner. So we'll go ahead and warp off, and then we'll come back to the bookmark that I set. So we should be relatively close to pick up that loot. I didn't want to try and slow boat it over there in case something came through the gate, but we are going to try and pick it up and see if we can get anything from it. Maybe a little bit of loot lust on my point. But hey, I worked hard, right? I deserve the loot. Oh, we got the carrier here. Okay, he's come through the gate here. Let's see if we can pick up the loot real quick. I am about 28 kilometers off, but I should get there pretty quick with that large afterburner. Let's go ahead and hit that loot button. Unfortunately, our inertias are on cooldown. Oh, we did get some good loot there. Okay, let's try and get away now. Let's see if we can align ourselves to a planet. Hit our DCU just so he's not going to be able to do enough damage to us here. We'll break that lock so his drones are going to have to go back to the ship, and we'll align to that planet. But unfortunately, our dragon chant is going to be locking us from warping for like 30 seconds. And even though we are going to be putting out close to 10,000 MS in our speed, he's got us locked down from a distance, and those drones and fighters are going to be a lot faster than 10,000 MS, especially if he has a speed boost mod. Oh boy. Oh, that was a bad idea. Oh, he's applying it to us way too much, and we're not even going to be able to reach 10,000 before he catches up to us. Oh, the drones. We're not even going to be outside of his drone command range, and he takes us out. Got a little too greedy there, guys. Got a little bit too greedy. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you liked my content with the Fiend and the Atron 2, although the Atron 2 Interceptor was a little bit limited there. The final word that I wanted to give on the disguise feature in this game is that I was actually incredibly disappointed with the feature in general. I thought, for some reason, that it was going to hide me from the local list, or at least prevent people from seeing me from the local list a little bit better than it does. But the fact that you still show up as a red, even if it says unknown capsuleer or it says Serpentis, whatever, you show up as a red for everybody else that's looking at that local list, which means that it's going to give them the warning bells. It doesn't matter what ship you're in, and you're not going to be able to avoid them warping back to the Citadel when they see you as a hostile coming into the system. It's just whether you're in low sec or null sec, it's kind of a disappointing feature in that regard, where it doesn't help me at all for hunting. So that I was disappointed in that. I will say though, if you're somebody who hunts often and uses the same ship very often, such as myself, who's always in a Fiend, it does help to hide your name so that they don't see your name and instantly assume what ship you're in. So like I said earlier in the video, if you see Gromire running through your space, you can pretty safely assume that I'm probably in my Fiend. So you can fit a ship real quick in your station and go out and try and fight me in something that completely counters the ship that you know I'm probably in. Other capsuleers do the same thing, where they'll hunt in Macario all the time, or they'll hunt in a Succubus all the time. So you kind of get into this pattern of when you see that name, you know exactly what to bring to counter them. So I guess I can see where the disguise feature can kind of hide that and help players or help hunters in that regard. And also, if you're somebody who uses a tackle alt, so an alt character that's going to be tackling ships for your main character to be fighting primary DPS, and you want to hide that alt's name so that people don't know what it is, then that can be useful as well. Unfortunately, if you do get a kill mail with the disguise feature, it doesn't apply to your kill death blow ratio on the final blow or the Moby, so you kind of don't even get credit for those kills. And I would hate to be disguised when the time finally comes for me to get that 50-60 billion-ist kill and I don't get any credit for it, or I can't have my name on the kill mail to kind of showcase what I did. It would be disappointing. And the last thing I'll say on that is that when you try to click on somebody's name in space or link them into like the Alliance chat, it won't work when you're an unknown capsuleer, when you're disguised. So when people will inevitably want to send me some salt messages, I'm not able to get those messages because they can't click on me or my name in the local list to send me a direct message. So that reduces the amount of content that I can get, and we don't get those funny salt meme videos that I've been able to put out. So unless you're specifically farming for the merits of the faction war system and you want to get those points and grind it out for those rewards, I don't see the disguise feature really being worth it overall. And one thing I will also say as a caveat is that when you are disguised, your own corporation or alliance cannot tell you're disguised, and that can end up in some funny kill mails as well. So be very careful if you are going to use this feature, because everyone becomes your enemy at that point if they're not in your fleet. Okay, so that's my thoughts on the disguise feature. I think once I figure out how to turn it off, I'm going to go back to my normal mode and you'll see Gromeyer's name in space more often. All right, and lastly, I do want to say that I'm going to do something that I've never done before in the history of my channel, which is I'm going to save content that I have on my phone for the next video. Usually I'll run out there for 2-3 weeks at a time and I'll give you everything that I participated in, but this time I'm actually going to push some stuff back so that I can bring you videos more often, and hopefully we can get more Eve Echoes content going forward. That's my goal, at least. I'm also thinking about doing a small mini series, which is just me an open opinion about the game, about everything that happens in the game, and any other things that people want to ask me questions for. I might put out some separate, smaller videos just on some opinion pieces to kind of keep the content flowing. I feel like content for Eve Echoes in general is kind of lacking lately. Not that there's not people putting out videos out there, but I just feel like people aren't really hyped up to play the game as much as they were, 6-8 months ago. So there's kind of a lull at this point. So if you can think of any topics that you want me to discuss, any questions you want me answered, go ahead and put them in the comments down below and I will try to address them in a future video. If you haven't already, go ahead and sign up on my Gromeyer Games Discord. I'll put a link to that Discord channel in the description for the video. And if it's broken, don't worry, just send me a private message at Gromeyer on Discord and I'll get you a fresh link. Sometimes they don't last for a long time for some reason. If you like this video and you want to see future content of me, go ahead and hit like, leave a comment down below on anything that interests you for Eve Echoes, and I will see you in the next Gromeyer Games video.